Euro 11. LBC weather, clear spells for most of the UK tonight, but thicker cloud and showers arriving in Northern Ireland and Western Scotland, a low of 8. Tomorrow, occasional heavy rain across the Midlands, Wales and the far north. Dry and warm elsewhere, a high of 27 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Davey Dom.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Iain Dale.
Hello, a very good evening to you. It's 3 minutes past 8 here on LBC. If you would like to watch the next hour, you can do so on the LBC website at lbc.co.uk, the Facebook page or Twitter feed. Why would you want to do that? Well, we have a leadership hustings. I've chaired 10 leadership hustings with the Conservatives over the past 2 or 3 weeks, but we've got a Liberal Democrat kind of hustings or debate or whatever we like to call it in the studio for the next hour. Joe Swinson is here, Deputy Leader of the Lib Dems and MP for East Dunbartonshire. So Ed Davey is Lib Dem MP for Kingston and Surbiton, former Cabinet Minister in the Coalition. You were Secretary of State for Energy and Climate Change, were you not?
I was indeed.
Is that the right title? I think it was.
Green Power Rules.
Right, we are going to take your calls throughout the next hour. If you've got any questions for our two candidates here, the number to call 0345 6060 973. Let's start off with the dreaded subject of Brexit. Joe Swinson, you are, well, in fact, I think both of you are keen advocates of a second referendum. Is there any difference between you on your Brexit strategies?
I don't think you're going to find a lot between Ed and me on the issue of Brexit. The Lib Dems are a very united party. We have been a principled party that has been in favour of being in the European Union, that has been internationalist since our formation, and we've stuck to that position. So it's no surprise that, after the referendum, we haven't changed our mind on whether our best future is within the European Union. And we said from the beginning very clearly that the Brexit deal, once negotiated, should be put to the public for a final say. And that's a position we're advocating, to have that people's vote. And we ultimately want to stop Brexit.
In the end, a lot of people have been in touch with me over the past few days saying, well, why do they still call themselves Liberal Democrats? Because they're not Democrats. They're not respecting the result of the referendum in which 17.4 million people voted to leave. Well,
in 2015, the Conservatives, won a majority, but, we still kept fighting for Liberal Democrat MPs. And 2 years after that, there was a general election and we got more Lib Dem MPs elected. So democracy doesn't end on any given day, and you keep fighting for what you believe in.
Ed Davey, any of that you disagree with?
No, not at all. We are the Remain Party. You should be not surprised by that.
But you weren't actually, were you? In the aftermath of the referendum, I remember Vince Cable and Paddy Ashdown telling me that any talk of a second referendum is for the birds.
The party policy has always been Remain, and you know that, Ian, and we've been the Stop Brexit Party all along, and I totally agree with Joe. And add to what Joe said is that not only we are very clear on our position on the EU and been very consistent, the idea we're undemocratic is a complete nonsense. We want a referendum. We're not saying we're going to impose our will on the British people. We're going to stop Brexit and there's no say that the British people would have in that. We actually want to give people a chance to have another vote. And I don't think there's anything wrong in that. People are allowed to change their minds. After all, I don't know if you've ever changed your mind on anything.
On so many things.
Oh, precisely. And this is a massive issue affecting our country for the decades ahead. And it's not unreasonable, given we know so much more than we did 3 years ago, to argue that we should have another vote. And something that Joe and I are very keen on is working cross-party on this. So we're happy to work with Conservative MPs and Labour MPs and SNP MPs. I propose that there's a possibility of a government of national unity. We discussed this last time it was on your programme. And, actually, there's more and more people thinking, you know what, maybe that's the way we need to go.
What's your view on that, Joe? A government of national unity. Say Boris Johnson becomes Prime Minister, doesn't take us out on the 31st, for whatever reason, it may be Parliament prevents that. There's then a general election, which will probably have a very inconclusive result, I imagine. Do you agree with Ed on that?
Well, I certainly don't rule anything out that would help us to stop Brexit. I think that the more straightforward path to us getting to stop Brexit is to hold a people's vote with the option to remain. And I think that we weren't very far off a majority of MPs last time round when that was voted on, and more may find that option looks attractive when they're presented with a Boris Johnson saying, he'll take us out with no deal on the 31st of October. So I think that is the path that's more likely to result in it. But, if there's a general election and, that we end up in a scenario where there's, a majority of MPs in the House of Commons that want to have a people's vote, then I absolutely think we should look at anything possible to deliver that.
Just to be clear, my proposal of government national unity is designed to get a people's vote. It's designed really ahead of a general election, because what you could do, thanks to the Fixed Term Parliaments Act, have a vote of no confidence in Boris Johnson because he's failed miserably, and then rather than there being a general election, it's quite possible, if there was a very clear signal to the palace that there was an MP who would command support, a majority of support, and get a Queen's speech through, that they could be sent. And it certainly wouldn't be Jeremy Corbyn, but it could be a number of people. I've, as you know, talked about a senior Labour Party backbenchers, given that the majority of MPs who would be in that government will be from the Labour Party.
It kind of all reminds me of 1910. There's a real constitutional crisis.
Absolutely.
Where the Liberal Party then was at the centre of it. And it, in a sense, even though you haven't got that many MPs, you would actually be crucial in arranging this in some way.
And I think we've got some legitimacy because of our huge vote in the local elections, and the fact that here in London we won the European election, we topped the poll, and we beat across the country Labour and the Tories for the first time in a national poll for over 100 years. So that gives us a lot of legitimacy in Parliament to argue for the sorts of things I'm talking about.
And what would be on your respective second referendum ballot papers, Jo?
I think it needs to have the chance to remain in the European Union, and that needs to be put against... But that's
all you really care about, isn't it?
That's what I care about the most,
really
obviously.
Matter, does it?
I happen to think it is for Brexiteers to define Brexit more than it is for those of us that want to remain. And part of the problem that we're in is that Brexiteers have not been able to agree amongst themselves on what Brexit should look like. I mean, I don't agree with it. I don't think it's a good idea. But even the people in Parliament who are in favour of Brexit can't get their act together and say this is what it should look like.
Do you both agree that the Prime Minister's deal is now dead?
I mean, who knows, right? I mean, I don't see how it gets through, but I don't see any of the things that Boris Johnson's outlining getting through either.
Well, one thing that Boris Johnson, I think, and some of his team are thinking, is that they might change a semicolon and put an apostrophe in with the word and hope that creates a Johnson deal which is different from May's. I'm not sure if the ERG or the DUP would fall for that. But I'll tell you one thing I'm really concerned about in this debate about what's on the ballot paper. This is the idea of no deal. Because no deal is a serious deception on the British people. And I'll tell you why. Because the day after you leave, there'd be a lot of deals already cooked up to keep the planes flying, for example.
Well, there are already deals on that, aren't there?
But then there'd have to be a whole series of deals, a plethora of deals, in order to get the trades sorted out, to get a whole range of other issues sorted out, because they'd have to happen. And so it's not a no deal, it's a have a negotiation after you've left.
Well, that is true.
Yeah, and let's think, would Britain be in a stronger position to negotiate after you left, or a weaker position?
But you haven't really answered my question.
Well, I'm trying to, because I'm saying that putting a no deal on the ballot paper is really daft.
You've only got one question then, haven't you? Remain.
No,
maybe that's the objective.
No, of course not. Jo and I both agree.
What else do you put on the ballot paper then?
Well, there's either a deal that's been
there isn't
agreed.
one. The Theresa May's deal clearly isn't going to get through Parliament. It's had 3 attempts. It's not going to get through now. So what else do you put on the ballot paper?
Well, it's the only thing that says what Brexit is at the moment.
But it's not going to get through, so you can't put it on the ballot paper.
The other thing,
do you just have another Leave Remain?
But Iain, I mean, effectively, this is the problem that we have. This is why the country is gridlocked on this, because what is going to get through Parliament, because the Brexiteers do not agree. So, I mean, I have no confidence that there is a majority in our country for any specific type of Brexit that you care to put together. Because clearly some of the ERG Brexiteers don't agree that May's deal, May's type of Brexit, is Brexity enough for them. But there's plenty of other people who want to leave the European Union who do not want to do that on the kind of hard Brexit or no-deal Brexit that Boris Johnson puts forward.
When you say it's up to the Brexiteers to define Brexit, who do you mean by the Brexiteers? Because do you mean the government? Do you mean the ex-Leave campaign? Who do you mean?
Well, this is the whole problem with Brexit. I've called the whole vote in 2016 a baked bean Brexit because of its 57 Heinz varieties.
This is the equivalent of Jeremy Hunt telling us he's an entrepreneur, isn't it? Because you come out with this all the time.
Well, I mean, I'm consistent. And the point is, I'm trying to make is there's so many varieties of Brexit. And that's what we need to avoid.
But aren't there so many different varieties of Remain as well? Because neither of you two sitting here today can tell me what the EU is going to look like in 2 years' time, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time. We don't even know who's going to succeed Jean-Claude Juncker. Ursula von der Leyen may well be defeated tomorrow.
But I mean, we do have some influence on that process. We've just elected members of the European Parliament who will be voting on that. And so, we at least are involved in that club and able to have a say on it.
But so what? Because we've had 4 people appointed to these big jobs. The people haven't had a say. None of them were the first choice candidates, I don't think. And you have somebody now who's going to head the hang on. You have somebody now who's wants to head the European Commission, who is universally thought of in Germany as the worst defence minister in West German in German history.
Hang on a second. I mean, lots of parliaments and institutions will appoint people. When the new Prime Minister appoints their cabinet, then have the people had a say. When they appoint the, whether it's the groceries code adjudicator or whatever other position that is appointed by ministers, that those aren't sort of put back to the public for a vote, but the public have voted for the MPs in Parliament from which that executive is drawn, and the public have voted for MEPs who sit in the European Parliament.
The executive is drawn from the European Parliament.
No, sorry, in the UK that is what is the case.
Sorry, I thought you meant Europe.
And in the case of Europe, we've just voted for MEPs that are voting on and having to confirm these positions. So that's where the democratic accountability is.
Well, Joe's absolutely right here. I've had the privilege of serving on a lot of EU ministerial councils representing Britain. I've actually served on more ministerial councils than a Liberal Democrat in history. That's my claim to fame.
And that still hasn't put you off Brussels.
No, but what it shows is that it's ministers, elected MPs from elected government who go to represent our country negotiating whether it's the president of the EU Council or whatever. And so this idea there's no democratic legitimacy is a total nonsense. So you wouldn't want to see that kind of system reformed at all then? Of course. Listen, Liberal Democrats have been one of the champions to reform the European Union and, by the way, Westminster and, by the way, local government. Let me explain why. No form of government is perfect. All forms of government need to be reformed. And if you're a sceptic, and Liberal Democrats actually are sceptical about government because we believe government needs to be held to account and needs to be much more accountable to the people. We want political reform. You should be tireless in wanting to reform local government, national government and EU. The idea that any of those are perfect is a total nonsense.
Right, we're going to come to your calls in a moment. 0345 6060 973. Lots of subjects. We've kind of covered Brexit, but if you want to ask about that, be my guest. But there are lots of other things that you could ask our 2 candidates here about. Joe Swinson and Davey with me here until 9. And don't forget, you can watch us on the LBC website at lbc.co.uk, the Facebook page or our Twitter feed. It's 16 minutes past 8.
This is LBC.
E.ON's just become the UK's largest 100% renewable electricity supplier, meaning 3.3 million E.ON homes are now backed by 100% renewable electricity. That's 100% electricity matched with 100% renewable sources. Not only is that 100% brilliant for our customers, it's 100% brilliant for the UK. So, are you ready to join the millions waking up to 100% renewable electricity every day? Find out more at eonenergy.com/renewable. E.ON. Tomorrow is on.
Is 2019 the most confusing year ever? Fake lips, speaking fake news, eating fake meat. Let's put it to a vote. After vote, after vote. But are we being listened to by our home devices?
No.
They don't have the answer. Get past the confusion with the Confused.com Beat Your Renewal Quote Guarantee. If you can't beat your renewal quote, you get the difference plus £20. Don't be confused. Be Confused.com. T's and C's online, single annual policies only.
Psst. Did you know that Pimlico Plumbers have an utterly fabulous 24-hour service for plumbing, heating, drains, roofing, electrics, appliances, carpentry and building? Whatever your predicament, Pimlico Plumbers can send a friendly face to your door within the hour. Shh! And just between us, their work even comes with a 12-month guarantee. They aren't just any old tradesmen, they're Pimlico plumbers, and they're always available on 0207 928 8888 or at pimlicoplumbers.com.
Many dentists refer their own patients on to Darwood and Tanner.
My name is Dr. Mark Kent. I'm a general dental practitioner practicing in a North London suburb. Darwood and Tanner have become my preferred referral practice. I feel that Dr. Andrew Darwood can provide the highest level of implant surgery that is available, together with giving my patients the option of alternative specialist treatments.
Download your information pack today. Search Darwood and Tanner. Your smile is our healthy obsession.
This year we will sell our 250,000th boiler for free, and you could be that lucky winner. Visit swellheating.com. Rely on us to keep you warm.
Introducing new TUI River Cruises. Choose from 19 European cruises, from meandering down the Danube to winding your way along the Rhine. Be immersed in local cultures with £120 excursions credit included per person. Enjoy activities from sightseeing with a local expert to tasting regional wines. Don't be a river cruiser, be a river explorer with TUI. We cross the T's, dot the I's and put you in the middle. £120 excursions credit is per person per 7-day sailing. Booking T's and C's apply. See website for details. Atoll protected.
I'm James O'Brien, and I'm delighted to invite you to join me for my podcast Full Disclosure. Listen to my interviews with celebrated and influential guests, including Frank Skinner, Bill Nighy, Prue Leith and Catherine Ryan. Listen and subscribe now on the LBC app or Global Player.
Iain Dale on LBC.
90 minutes past 8 here on LBC. Right, we'll come to your calls now with Joe Swinson and Ed Davey. Robert is in Rochester. Hello, Robert.
Hello there.
Hi, what's your question?
My question. Basically, hello, guys.
Hello.
As I'm somebody that has actually voted Liberal Democrat in the past, however, am a Brexit voter, in the current climate and your current positions, I can't vote for you at this current time. And as I know some of my friends locally that are Liberal Democrats but Brexiteers, how are we going to all come together and, basically get back to a more normal playing field?
Joe.
Yeah. First of all, Robert, thanks for supporting us in the past, and I hope that you'll be able to in the future. I totally recognise that Brexit is this issue which is dividing our country, and we have a strong view that we're better off in the European Union and that that's the best future for Britain, and we're putting that forward straightforwardly up front, and I recognise that there's lots of people like you who genuinely just take a different view. And the first thing to say is, we've got members in the Lib Dems who are in favour of leaving the European Union. They're certainly in the minority, but they exist, and I in fact have met some of those when I've been out door knocking. And
why are they still members?
Well, because they're Liberals and because they believe in Liberal Democrat values on a whole range of different policy issues. And as a Liberal Party, one of the things in our, on our membership cards is that no one shall be enslaved by poverty or conformity. So, we recognise that even within our own party, there will be differences of opinion. And I think we're able to deal with that in a way that, is fairly mature and just recognising that people genuinely hold different views.
Is it a problem for the Liberal Democrats and probably other political parties as well, that people are now, rather than defining themselves as a Conservative, Labour or Liberal Democrat, they're now just defining themselves as Leave or Remain?
I think it's a challenge. It's something that's changed our politics. What I've been saying in the Lib Dem leadership is that we need to listen to Leavers. We can hold our passionate views about wanting to remain and wanting to have people's vote and giving people a chance to vote on it again. But whatever the result of that, we do need to listen to the people, whether they're people like Robert, who've been a Liberal Democrat but don't agree with us on Brexit, or frankly anyone else. And when you study a lot of the analysis of why people voted Leave, there's many reasons. There's not one reason why people voted Leave. Some with it because they didn't like Europe, no doubt. Some people who immigration was a big issue. And there are others, and quite a lot of the polls and analysis shows this, who felt that their economic lot in life in the UK was not great, and they were frankly fed up with it, and they wanted to stick two fingers up to London and say, you've not listened to us, our community's been left behind. I'm going to make you listen to us. And my view, one of the ways, if you're listening to Leave voters properly and you want to address that and actually bring the country together, just like Robert said, the awful divisions in our society, we've got to heal them. And I think one of the ways is dealing with inequality in our society, and particularly the difference between different regions. I mean, I don't know about you, but I find it shocking that while we have 2 of the richest 10 regions of Northern Europe in Britain, London and the South East, we have 6 of the 10 poorest regions of Northern Europe in our country. And I think that regional inequality is something that's a stain on our economy, and I'd want to address that, and I think that would be part of the way of addressing Leavers' concerns.
But both of you seem to be much more emollient towards Leave voters than I've heard you, certainly in the past. Is there some reason for that?
I mean, actually, I think last time I was on your show, Ian, there was a caller who was similarly of an opinion that we're Leave. And again, I mean, I think at the time what I talked about is how we need to rediscover the art of disagreeing well. It's almost like in our public debate now, we get into these echo chambers, and I think social media doesn't help with this, and come into contact less with people with whom we disagree. And that has a particular impact on the way in which our debate operates. And I think one of the values of doing the things like getting out on the doorsteps and door knocking and meeting people face to face is that very often people will have a much more civilized disagreement when they're face to face than when people are hitting the keyboards in frustration. So I think it's a good thing for our politics to be able to engage in that way, because there is real disaffection in our country, and not everybody agrees about these issues, and we need to be able to discuss them in a way that doesn't assume that the person who disagrees with us is somehow inherently evil just because they disagree with us on Brexit.
Chris in Newbury says, Ian, apart from being a marketing assistant at Viking FM, can Jo Swinson explain why her minority view of staying in the EU should trump my majority vote? I've only worked around the world while she sold airtime advertising. There's nothing wrong with selling airtime advertising on a commercial radio station, let me tell you.
And I set up my own business, and I worked for an award-winning SME in Glasgow as well. But look, I think that I'm entitled to my view, and I'm arguing for the things that I believe in, and the people's vote to stop Brexit that I'm arguing for is a democratic exercise, and the thought that everybody who voted in that referendum in 2016 all thought exactly the same thing about what Brexit would look like, I just don't think is borne out by the evidence, and that's why more and more people are supporting a people's vote.
Someone's texted in to say, what is the difference between these two? Because we've gone 25 minutes so far and I haven't yet detected one. I mean, you must have views as to why you're better than each other to be leader.
But you have been chatting to us about Brexit, Ian, and we do agree on that.
I have.
Totally.
I'm slightly disappointed that there was no disagreement at all. Ed, why do you think you would be a better leader than Jo?
Well, at the hustings, we obviously listen to each other's pitch. And my pitch has been very much about the vision that I see, both not just stopping Brexit, but after Brexit. Because Brexit, might be solved, who knows, sometime soon. Let's hope it is. And whichever way it's solved, we've got to be thinking about the Liberal Democrats and British politics in our country and what it needs after that. So I've been talking about the inequality and tackling that I mentioned a few minutes ago. I've also been talking about the other crisis that's affecting our country, the climate crisis.
But you're not going to disagree on that, are you?
Well, hold on. Let me finish. And I've also been talking about massive investment in education. Now, the point I'm making is I've got a very clear and detailed policy position, and I've set it out in some detail. And I've said that not only do I have that vision, but I have a lot of experience having served in the Cabinet, National Security Council, negotiated the EU and UN to try to make that happen. So, Jo's got, this is a contest between friends, and I don't think there's anything bad about that. But I think I have
you haven't got
different.
The experience, Jo, that Ed has got. That seems to be the dividing line here.
Well, Ed's been an MP for longer than I have. I absolutely give him that, and he served in cabinet, and I was a minister in government, but not in cabinet. But look, I think this is about how we take our party to reach out to new voters, and whether we're talking about doing that right across the country, across the generations, or across traditional party lines, I think I'm best placed to do that. Our politics is very London-centric at the moment. We've talked about that. And, I've lived and worked in Scotland, in Yorkshire, and also in London. So, I bring a different perspective to that. In terms of social media profile, being able to engage with young people online, that's something which I've got a strength. I was one of the first MPs to use Twitter, way back when you still got told off for getting your phone out in Parliament, because apparently it was rude and disrespectful to tweet during PMQs, as if that's what's really the rude behaviour in that case. And, in terms of reaching out to people who've previously been in different political parties and across those traditional party lines, I'm a non-tribal politician, and, people who work around Parliament know me for that. And I think that's exactly what we need right now for the Lib Dems to take advantage of the opportunity that's opened up.
But I think what people are looking for, not just here but also in the Conservative contest and indeed in the Labour Party, they want a leader. And the fact that you do come across as very similar, which, OK, you'll say, well, we're in the same political party, of course we're going to be a bit similar, but they want to see leadership in the sense. I mean, Paddy Ashdown, nobody doubted that Paddy Ashdown was a leader, but I think they look at the two of you and think, well, have they got the same kind of leadership qualities that Paddy Ashdown had? Or indeed Nick Clegg, because, of course, Nick Clegg, to give him his due, was a risk taker. Are either of you two risk takers?
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we win the next election and I'm the next Prime Minister. Not obviously the immediate one, because that would probably be Boris Johnson, but at the next election, I think the Liberal Democrats can come through. And like Joe, I believe I can appeal to those liberal pro-European Tories who want a leader of a political party who's got as a strong business message. But I think I can appeal to those sort of pro-EU Social Democrat Labour people who want to hear someone who believes in fairness, tackling inequality, and has got an agenda to invest in our schools, our health service and our police. And I think I can reach out to both those sides and through my experience I talked about, make a very credible case to be a future Prime Minister.
You see, a lot of people listening to this will have burst out laughing when you said that, because they know that you've got 12 seats at the moment. Was it 13?
Have you seen the polls?
I have seen the polls.
Four-way split at the moment.
I have seen the polls, but even if it's a four-way split and at the next election it's 25, 25, 25, 25, that does not make you Prime Minister.
No, well, that is true, but if you go into election with things so tight, with the Tory vote split with the Brexit Party, with Labour very weak, it is absolutely credible to say that a strong Liberal Democrat leader can come through and win for our party, make us the largest party and therefore the Prime Minister.
Ian, just tell me, in the last 5 or 10 years, have you made any political predictions that have turned out to be horrendously wrong?
Oh, that's a deeply wounding comment, Joey, because you know
well, come on.
I have.
But we all have, right? But we all have, because politics is so volatile. So the old rules of how it was being done have been ripped up.
Yeah.
And so things that did sound really far-fetched a decade ago, when we've all seen the, event after event, the political event that wasn't supposed to happen, then absolutely, as Liberal Democrats, we are ambitious for our party, yes, but for our country. Because when people look at Boris Johnson on the one hand about to become Prime Minister and Jeremy Corbyn on the other, those men are not fit to be Prime Minister. Our country needs a better alternative, and that is the Liberal Democrats.
We will take more of your calls in a moment. Keep your calls coming, preferably not on Brexit. I think we've done that one to death. Well, you never do Brexit to death, because we could do it for sort of 24 hours a day, every day. But let's try and look at some other policy areas where in fact, your challenge for this next half an hour is to find a policy where we have a clear difference between Joe and Ed. Good luck with that. It's 8:31. David Dom has the news headlines.
Donald Trump says politicians who complain about the USA should leave after a string of tweets many people are calling racist. The American president has been criticised for telling rival congresswomen from ethnic minorities to go back to their crime-infested countries. Theresa May's office said the comments were completely unacceptable. England's cricketers are at a reception hosted by the Prime Minister after their victory at the World Cup. Mrs May, who's a big fan of the sport, said the team showed flair and determination as they beat New Zealand to win the trophy for the first time. And environmental campaigners have been causing disruption across 5 UK cities, including London, Bristol and Cardiff. Extinction Rebellion staging what they call a summer uprising by trying to block roads in key junctions with colourful boats. LBC weather, clear spells for most of the UK tonight, but thicker cloud and showers arriving in Northern Ireland and Western Scotland, a low of 8 degrees.
This is LBC.
Meg, the driving instructor, is definitely almost 90% sure she's filing her VAT right. Kinda. But she'd be more confident with QuickBooks. QuickBooks is perfect for making tax digital and is HMRC recognised. Get up to 50% off your first 6 months. And maybe put it towards a new clutch.
Making tax digital means monthly VAT returns are changing too. Are you ready for the 7th of August? Visit quickbooks.co.uk for details. QuickBooks, backing you.
E.ON's just become the UK's largest 100% renewable electricity supplier, meaning 3.3 million E.ON homes are now backed by 100% renewable electricity. That's 100% electricity matched with 100% renewable sources. Not only is that 100% brilliant for our customers, it's 100% brilliant for the UK. So, are you ready to join the millions waking up to 100% renewable electricity every day? Find out more at eonenergy.com/renewable. E.ON. Tomorrow is on.
At Indeed, we understand that when it comes to hiring, it's important to have a large talent pool to choose from. But sometimes, too many good options can be overwhelming. That's why Indeed doesn't just give you access to a large pool of job seekers. We also offer screener tools that let you instantly narrow down your search. Hone in on hiring with Indeed. Experience Indeed for yourself today and get a free sponsored job upgrade on your first posting at Indeed.com/redeem. Terms and conditions apply.
When you take your new puppy home this summer, the first thing you'll think about is giving them a name. But the second should be keeping them happy and healthy. For pet insurance policies as unique as they are, get a free quote today at petsinapickle.co.uk.
London, we have a problem. Our air is toxic, and driving polluting vehicles is the main cause. The air that I breathe, that my friends breathe, that my mum and dad breathe, and that you breathe, can cause lifelong diseases. But there are solutions, like making our transport greener and creating better spaces to walk and cycle.
These are just some of the ways the Mayor of London and TfL are helping to improve air quality across the capital. Find out how you can make a difference too. Search Let London Breathe. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
This is LBC with Iain Dale. Call 0345 6060 973.
8:35. Joe Swinson, Ed Davey with us, vying for the Liberal Democrat leadership. The result will be announced next Monday. If some of you are watching on the website, one of the cameras has been playing up, but it is working again now. I think when you were watching Joe, you got the back of my head, which you didn't get a very good bargain there, I can tell you. Before we go to the next call, I want to ask you both something that I asked Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt at the hustings on Saturday. If you were writing a letter to your 16-year-old self, what would it say, Joe Swinson?
Gosh, guys, 16 is quite a hard age, isn't it? You know, it's. I think I'd just want to say, like, you know, keep going. You can do this, and you know, don't believe people who try to put you down. Because, if I had a choice, I don't think I'd go back and do adolescence again.
Ed,
enjoy life. I mean, you know, I was quite a serious person. I'd lost both my parents as a kid. My dad was 4, mum as a 15, and therefore made you quite determined, serious, and I studied quite hard. And if I have any regret, I didn't party enough and have so much fun. But I mean, I'm quite a sociable person. I like going to parties and meeting people. But I think inevitably with that background, I was a bit more serious.
Here's an interesting question from Stuart, who's a first-time caller in High Wycombe. Stuart, what's your question, please?
Oh, good evening. Hi, Joe.
Hi.
Hi. I've seen both you in action at hustings at London School of Economics recently, and I've also seen lots of televised debates and listening to this one with great interest as well. My point is really, I think like myself, there are plenty of people who are active members of the party who have yet to make their mind up between the two of you, because it's a very difficult thing to do because you're both excellent candidates. So my question this evening really was, actually, why don't you both share the leadership and take a joint platform?
Well, now there's a thought. The Green Party do that. Why not you, Ed Davey?
Exactly.
Well, I would, of course, love to. However, the constitution of the Liberal Democrats prohibits us. Very interesting. Joe and I both were business ministers with the responsibility of employment affairs, and we both very progress flexible working. So if you're in private sector or the public sector, you had a chance to ask for the right to have some flexible working. We didn't introduce that into the Liberal Democrat constitution to allow job shares, unfortunately.
But some people would say that was hypocritical.
Well, I mean, first of all, Stuart, I would say that I think it's been really positive the way lots of Liberal Democrats have, recognised that this contest has showed that there's great talent in the Lib Dems, and we've got 12 MPs and amongst our MEPs as well, and our candidates up and down the country. There's a lot of reason for optimism. What both Ed and I have been very clear is that whichever one of us wins, then the other is obviously going to be playing a really important role in the top team. And
what role would that be?
Well, to be honest, Iain, I think that's a question I would be directing to Ed if I'm the leader, rather than discussing with you on the radio, lovely though that temptation is. Because, as far as I'm concerned, if I'm leader of Lib Dems, whatever Ed wants to do in terms of contributing, he's got huge experience and ability to do it. So I think you will find that within the face of the Lib Dems going forward, you will get both of us being very prominently involved.
Right, let's go to another question. Luke is a first-time caller from Rotherham. Hi, Luke.
Hi, it's absolutely great to be on. It's been a fantastic debate so far. I was just wanted to ask both candidates, what are their stances on defence, and do they support the current party policy, or would they seek to change it?
Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think that clearly it's the security of our nation is the most serious of the government's responsibilities, and that obviously needs to be properly resourced.
Trident?
Yes, I think we do need to have a nuclear deterrent, and it makes sense to do that in the most cost-effective way. But I think in this uncertain world that we do need to have that. The other thing I would say is, of course, without going all the way back to Brexit, but staying in the European Union is one of the best ways to preserve our security through our multilateral relations with all of those other countries, and that's where our best influence, our greatest influence is on the world stage. Well, NATO is hugely important as well, but I'm thinking about, when, around the world, when, geopolitical situations flare up, it's often through the European Union that we're able to create most influence, and definitely working as part of a group of 28 countries, we do have more influence.
Okay, Ed, Trident?
Well, I certainly believe in an independent nuclear deterrent. I'm not sure if Trident, that Cold War...
Ooh, we have a little bit of a schism here.
I don't think so, because if you look at the Liberal...
searching for one.
Yeah, I know, you're trying your best, keep going. But the Liberal Democrat defence policy of 2017, as I recall, talks about a nuclear defence strategy, but not based on replacement like for like of Trident. Yeah. But the point that you made on NATO, I think it's worth looking at that for a minute, because I strongly support Britain's membership of NATO. But you've got to look at what Trump and a number of the people have been saying in Washington about the future of NATO, and it's highly troubling. And if we are going to have strong alliances around the world, we can't just simply rely on our friendship and partnership with North America, which is vital though it is. We need to make sure those other relationships are strong. It's one of the reasons why I believe that we need to be in the EU. Let me give you one precise example when I was a Secretary of State for Energy and Climate Change about how we promoted defence through the EU. It was when Putin annexed Crimea and the Russians started causing the unrest in eastern Ukraine. There was real concerns about energy supply going into Europe, particularly into Central and Eastern Europe. We had meetings of G7 energy ministers, we had meetings of the EU energy ministers, and we wrote in my office in Whitehall the EU's energy security strategy, the aim of which was to mean that Central and Eastern European countries didn't import so much oil and gas and coal from Russia. Why was that important for defence? It meant less money was going to the coffers of the Kremlin for them to be able to spend on tanks and missiles and cyber warfare and so on. That's the soft power you get if you're at the table of the EU. Okay. I exercise that, and that was a good defence policy.
Luke, are you satisfied with those answers, or would you like to see a bit of a change in Lib Dem policy?
It's great to hear what they've been saying. Personally, I am very pro-NATO. Sorry, I think it's like cornerstone of British defence. Personally, I'd just like to ask the candidates, would they support an increase in defence spending for the UK?
Joe?
Well, I think we should meet the 2% defence spend, but I wouldn't be proposing it going above that.
Ed?
Yeah, same here, I'm afraid. It's that same policy. Good luck.
Oh dear. Luke, thank you very much indeed. Interesting text here. Could you ask your guests, in the event of a general election, will they not stand against Remainer Tory MPs or ex-Tories standing as independents? I guess this goes to the idea of the whole Remain alliance issue. Now, other parties have stood down in your favour in the Brecon and Radnorshire by-election. Would you look at doing that, Ed?
I think it would depend on the circumstances. Let me give you circumstances when I'd seriously consider it. Imagine there was a handshake in front of number 10 between Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson, and there was a Leave alliance between Brexit and the Conservative Party, which I think would both take Britain out of Europe in a very dangerous way, in my view, but also would take our politics to the right in a way which I think would challenge everything that Liberal Democrats stand for. In that circumstance, I would actually want to Remain alliance where we were prepared to stand down in some seats for Tory Remain MPs and Labour Remain MPs. Yes, I would. But
would they have to agree to stand down in Liberal Democrat target seats?
No, it would have to be unilateral. There's no way we'd be able to do a deal with the Tory party or the Labour Party, given their leaderships and given that they're both Brexit parties.
Joe?
So I think we need to be prepared to do whatever it takes to stop Brexit, and that includes thinking really carefully about how in elections, where we stand and who we stand against. I think we need to do it with a lot of data at our fingertips. We're talking about, spreadsheets with election results and understanding where the latest polls show that to be, where places are most winnable for different parties. I mean, in most places, the Liberal Democrats will be the clear strongest party of Remain, just because of where the other parties are. But there will be cases where absolutely I think it will make sense to do this. I mean, in the last election, we didn't stand in Brighton Pavilion against Caroline Lucas. So, our local parties are already used to doing this in some cases. And I think having had the experience of Plaid and the Greens standing down in Brecon and Radnorshire, which I very much hope we are able to win and elect the amazing Jane Dodds MP to Parliament, then I think that that helps to build some trust. And I think people within the Lib Dems will expect that there needs to be a degree of this. And actually, I think people in the country, when we've got so much at stake, we're not talking about a normal general election campaign. If we're going into one in, weeks or months to come, where, the very future of our country is at stake, not just for the next, 2, 3, 5 years, but for generations to come. And we need to be thinking more widely than our party.
James says, here's a non-Brexit question for you. How come Joe's sweet voice is Scottish mixed with a Somerset accent? There's a challenging one for you. I have to say, I haven't heard the Somerset accent in your
you
voice
might get a bit of Yorkshire in there, because I did spend a few years in East Yorkshire. But no, it's a Mulgai accent.
We'll see if we can balance that up with one for Ed of a similar nature later, if we get one. Right, in the next 15 minutes, we'll take more of your calls, and the two candidates are going to ask each other a question as well. You're listening to LBC. It's 8:45.
James O'Brien, Monday to Friday from 10 a.m.
These people were educated at the finest schools and the finest universities in the world. So when they have told you stuff, there is no shame in having believed it. But if you honestly think that the Director General of the World Trade Organization knows less about how the World Trade Organization works than Brexit hardman Steve Baker or Mark Pudding Francois, then that's the point at which I can't help you anymore.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
You know their names. Now, find out who they are. Listen to Full Disclosure with James O'Brien, an insightful podcast featuring rare, candid conversations with the biggest names in politics, entertainment, and sport. And while James gives you a look into their lives, keep an eye on yours with Blink, wireless home security cameras you can monitor on your smartphone. Full Disclosure with James O'Brien. New episodes every Monday, thanks to Blink home security cameras.
At
Lidl, we're big on summer fruits. Little fruits, big fruits and super fruits. Big on 400 grams of British strawberries at £1.69. Big on the juiciest blueberries at £1.35. And big on the most mouth-watering watermelon for only 60p a kilo. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores excludes NI.
E.ON's just become the UK's largest 100% renewable electricity supplier, meaning 3.3 million E.ON homes are now backed by 100% renewable electricity. That's 100% electricity matched with 100% renewable sources. Not only is that 100% brilliant for our customers, it's 100% brilliant for the UK. So, are you ready to join the millions waking up to 100% renewable electricity every day? Find out more at eonenergy.com/renewable. E.ON. Tomorrow is on.
Meg, the driving instructor, is definitely almost 90% sure she's filing her VAT right. Kinda. But she'd be more confident with QuickBooks. QuickBooks is perfect for making tax digital and is HMRC recognised. Get up to 50% off your first 6 months. And maybe put it towards a new clutch.
Making tax digital means monthly VAT returns are changing too. Are you ready for the 7th of August? Visit quickbooks.co.uk for details. QuickBooks, backing you.
Business like a boss with a new mobile plan from 3. All the usual stuff you could get from a phone contract like unlimited data, plus 6 months of exclusive benefits from our partners. Spend less time accounting and more time businessing with FreshBooks. Build a website designed to work perfectly on a mobile with Wix. Get a receptionist that's not your nan at WeWork. And nothing says I've got this like a business card from Moo. Get the mobile plan that actually helps your business because 3 means business. Search 3.co.uk/business for further details.
Days and weeks can fly by, but if you're worried it's cancer, time can slow down and almost stop. That's why, with Bupa Health Insurance, you can call us about any symptom of cancer without seeing your GP first. Depending on your cover and your symptoms, we could even refer you to a consultant there and then. Bupa Health Insurance. For living. To find out more, search Bupa. Direct access services may not be available for some underwriting methods, and you may need to provide evidence the conditions are not pre-existing.
Iain Dale on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
8:48. Ed, Davey and Joe Swinson here taking your calls, but before they take another one, they're going to ask each other a question. Ed, would you like to ask Joe first, and then she has 2 minutes to answer?
Joe, some of the campaigns I've been involved in come from my personal experience. So I do a lot of campaigning on bereavement of young families because I lost my parents, and also because I nursed my mum for terminal illness, a lot of campaigning on homeless people who've got terminal illness. What campaigns have you been involved in that come from your personal experience, in your life experience?
Yeah. Well, I mean, from the very early stages, I started getting interested in campaigning and trying to change the world when I was still a child, and I would go along to the Body Shop, and that was in the 1980s where Anita Roddick was running it, and it was very much a campaigning organisation, and that would be the first petitions that I signed. I'd go and buy my little basket of fruit shaped soaps and sign a petition on fair trade or whatever. But what I really liked about Anita Roddick, and I then read her book when I was a teenager, Business as Unusual, was the way in which she had a different vision for how business engaged in society. And then when I was a minister in charge of corporate governance, we managed to increase transparency in corporate reporting on environmental and human rights issues, and also make some changes to company law to make it easier for people to see where the real controlling interests of companies lay. So I would say that was one example. And then more recently, perhaps, I've campaigned on issues around parental rights in the workplace, and I introduced the law to have shared parental leave when I was pregnant with my first child, and with our second son, then we were able to use shared parental leave, and I've now been campaigning for transparency from employers about what their parental pay policies are, because I think that is one of the barriers that still exists for men taking up shared parental leave, which many want to. There's lots of evidence that says dads want to spend more time with their new babies.
Total success, has it?
Well, one of the reasons, but one of the reasons for that is finance, and so there's still lots of employers who will pay more to in maternity pay, have more enhancements in employee benefits than they will in shared parental pay. And if companies had to publish what their policies were, then I think that might shame some more into increasing shared parental pay for dads.
perfectly timed. Your question to Ed.
So, I mean, I wanted to ask you sort of more on a personal basis, really, Ed. So, you've obviously, your son John has special needs, and so you're experiencing that as a dad, all of those challenges within the family, and indeed for your other child Ellie as well. What do you wish that policymakers and indeed people across the country knew about what it's like, living and looking after a disabled child?
Yeah, well, certainly John has got some very special needs. He's undiagnosed, but he can't walk or talk, so he's pretty disabled. And I remember when David Cameron became the Tory leader with his son Ivan, who tragically died, he talked a lot about special education needs. I think what I would say is, for policymakers and people who are trying to help parents with a child with special needs, it's trying to understand the emotions involved. Because when you've got a baby or a little boy and you think that they're, it's wonderful, John was our first child, and you're on this wonderful trip as a new parent, and it's so exciting, so much fun, and then suddenly you realise there's something quite seriously wrong, and it's like you're on a flight to Italy, to Italian holiday, and you get diverted to Brussels. Not to bring back Brexit, by the way. You get diverted to Brussels.
Nothing could be worse than that.
Not such a fun place. And it's wonderful because I adore my son, and he's very, very happy, but it's very challenging. And I know there are many, many parents, constituents of mine who come to my surgeries asking for help, who they feel that some of the professionals involved, be they the local authorities or the health service or the schools or whatever, don't seem to quite understand the pressure it puts on the family. And I worry about those parents who aren't as fortunate as myself and my wife. My wife's a lawyer, I'm a politician, we're not badly off. And so we sort of fight for John and do everything we can to help him. And it must be very difficult for those parents who don't know the system and for them to navigate it. And obviously when they come to me as their constituency MP, I'm pretty emotionally engaged for them because I've got a lot of sympathy for them and trying to help them with whatever it is, these new policy called education and health care plans, and we navigate people through those.
Your time is up, I'm afraid, but I think you asked better questions than I've asked throughout this whole interview, to be honest. Right, I want to get in 3 questions in 6 minutes, so if you can keep your answers to these relatively brief. Alistair's in Leamington Spa. What would you like to ask, Alistair?
Thanks, Ian. I'd like to know from both Ed and Joe whether, bearing in mind the possible landscape after a next general election, whether either of them would consider getting into a coalition with any other party in any circumstances, and bearing in mind their most recent experience.
Joe?
Certainly not a Jeremy Corbyn Labour Party or a Boris Johnson Conservative Party. I don't rule out coalition in principle.
But if it was a Ken Clarke-led Conservative Party and a Hilary Benn-led Labour Party, you might.
Well, look, they're currently led by Brexiteers. It's fundamentally opposed to what we stand for. I'm not against coalition in principle. I think it can be a good form of government, and as a pluralist, I want a proportional electoral system that is fairer so that every vote counts, and that tends to result in coalition.
We might come on to that in a moment. But
a question on electoral reform, that'd be amazing.
Are you proud of the record of the coalition?
Yeah, I think we did a huge amount of good. I think we took a decision to go into government in the national interest, and it was the right decision to do that. And we managed to make huge change in society, such as same-sex marriage and taking people in low pay out of income tax. And I think we should be very proud of it.
Ed, do you disagree with any of that? If you don't, we might move on to the next question.
I don't disagree with
Okay, let's move on to the next question. Alistair, you got your answer there. Richard is in Switzerland. Hello, Richard.
Hi, Ian.
Hi.
Just quickly, I think you deserve a bit more credit for your Italy-Brussels quip. That was very funny. Just quickly to the candidates. Bearing in mind your party's views on cannabis legalisation, how do your individual views differ on the implementation of legalisation, and in what kind of time frame do you see it happening?
Ed?
Well, I think the party policy is really strong, because it basically says at the moment we're treating people with drug addictions as if they're criminals, when many times it's a health issue and should be medically treated. And on cannabis in particular, that we're wasting huge amounts of money locking up people for personal use, when the real villains are the gangs and the drug barons. And if we stopped going after people for their personal use by decriminalising it, and then we could really put the squeeze on the serious drug barons who are pushing the Class A drugs. It's pretty clear that the drugs war is being lost. We've got to take it more seriously, and I think our policy is crying out to be implemented.
Joe?
I think it's right that we take this stance. I mean, in a sense, it's sort of seen as radical, but it really ought not to be when, we're talking about something which, huge numbers of people are doing, and it brings, I think, the general legal system on drugs, into having less credibility, because a lot of people look at it and think it makes no sense. And if you actually have the legalisation, you can do things like regulate the strength properly. You can obviously make sure there's much more research into the impacts, and actually there's a taxation element, and you take away the people who are pushing the drugs from that market for that particular drug, and so it becomes less of a gateway through to harder drugs. So it seems to make perfect sense.
Just allied to this, Lawrence in Tottenham. I'm not going to come to you, Lawrence, because we've literally got 90 seconds or so left, but I'm going to ask your question. You say, what policies would you put in place to tackle knife crime?
Well, first of all, you need a massive increase in community police. The cutbacks have been disastrous. And then massive increase in youth services and working with the community to have community campaigning. I've seen it in my constituency with a great campaign called Drop a Knife, Save a Life. They're the things we should invest in.
True.
I absolutely agree with those, and it's about making sure that there's hope and there's alternatives for young people, many of whom are carrying a knife because they are worried themselves about their own safety. And so creating a sense of security within the community. I mean, I was so struck when I went with Pauline Pearce, the Hackney Lib Dem campaigner, to the site where one of the recent knife crime victims, Tashawn, had died, and we were standing there, and a couple of his friends came up, as they did regularly, and it was when they were talking about, they were doing their GCSEs, that's why they were off school, and he should have been worrying about his exams rather than, they were worrying about their grief at that point in their life, and his life had been completely ended, and it is so senseless.
That's not a particularly uplifting way to end the hour, but it's a very meaningful one. Thank you to both of you, Davey and Joe Swinson. Whichever one of you wins next Monday, I hope you'll come back to do regular phone-ins with us on my show on LBC.
What about the person who loses? I mean, we're unwelcome or something.
Dead to me.
Of course. And happy birthday, Ian.
Thank you very much. Right, we are going to change the tone of the debate now, I suspect, because US President Donald Trump has redoubled his attack on 4 Democratic Congresswomen, accusing them of hating our country. He said, if you're not happy, if you're complaining all the time, you can leave. On Sunday, Mr. Trump called on the women, who are from ethnically diverse backgrounds, to go back to the country you come from. In normal circumstances, a person would lose their job for saying this, but what will the consequences be for President Trump? Isn't this proof, if proof were needed, that the President of the United States is an out-and-out racist? 0345 6060 973 is the number to call.